Hello, you are listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
Hi, I'm Thomas.
And we are back. And today's episode, we are talking about sunk costs.
Sunk costs. That's that describes some of your ex-husband's boats.
Quite literally. That's a story for another podcast.
He has a couple of sunk costs. He has two of them, right?
Yes, I think so too. that I know of. Okay, so
but we're not talking about boats.
we are not talking about boats. I don't really like talking about boats anyway. So, but what we're talking about on sunk costs now, you know, if you have a financial background like me, you probably know what that term means. But if you don't have a financial background, you might not necessarily know what that term means. And so Thomas is going to describe it a little bit for us.
Yes, a sunk cost is basically a term that you learn in Economics 101, and it has to do with a cost that you've already incurred that's in the past. So there's nothing you can do to change that. It's done. The expense has already been incurred. And so when you are making economic decisions, it's important to look forward from that point and not look back on it.
Hard to do.
Yes. Yes, it is. For example, let's say that you have a car that's worth $10,000 and you have some transmission problems and you fix the transmission and it costs you $6,000. Great. You've got a $10,000 car and you've spent $6,000 to fix it. So you're still $4,000 to the good. But let's say you're driving along with your new transmission and the car throws a rod. Now you've got another repair bill. Let's say it's $5,000. And the question is, should you repair the car? That's the question. And what's the answer? From a strictly economic standpoint.
I was going to say, well, that depends. Yes. I mean, strictly speaking, you have a $10,000 car. Now you need a $5,000 repair. So if you don't repair it, you're tossing $10,000. If you repair it for $5,000, then you're $5,000 to the good.
But wait a minute. You've already spent
$6,000. So really,
you already spent $11,000 fixing this piece of garbage.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is what happens with old cars, right? It gets to the point where we have to decide at some point, given all the repairs, are we better off to go and get that new car and have a car payment, or are we better off to continue to try to maintain the car we have?
But if you could sell that car tomorrow for $10,000,
right,
then the clear answer to that question is repair the car.
Yes.
Because if you don't repair it, it doesn't matter that you spent $6,000 in the past. That money's gone.
Right. And now you have a car that's not worth anything.
You have a car that's worth nothing.
Right.
Unless you spend $5,000. So it's worth it to spend $5,000 to have $10,000 and then sell it.
Immediately.
Sell it to somebody. And
if you've had a transmission and a rod issue in 2 weeks, you need to sell that puppy.
You need to, yeah. Yeah, and in some ways it's not a realistic example. But another good example is the bridge to nowhere. And we've heard that a lot in our political talk. But essentially, let's say that you go to the state legislature and you say, I need a budget of $5 million to build a bridge across the Swanee River.
Right.
Whatever. And so you start building this bridge and the laborers go on strike and the price of materials goes up and you have overruns. And you get the bridge half built so that you've got half a bridge and you need more money. It's not very
useful.
So you go to the legislature and you say, I need $5 million more to complete the bridge.
Right.
And so what do you tell do you tell the legislature, look, we've already spent $5 million, we've got to recover that? Is that the question you ask?
No.
It's not the question you ask. The question you ask is, are you going to get more than a $5 million bridge?
Right.
You're going to get a bridge that its total utility, and economists have ways of calculating that, is more than $5 million. If it is, you complete the bridge.
Right.
But if you're getting a $4 million bridge, it doesn't matter that you've already spent $5 million.
Right.
The question is, should you spend another $5 million to get a $4 million bridge?
No.
The answer is no. And
then you have a half-done bridge sitting there.
Although, politicians, you got this half-built bridge that doesn't go anywhere. It's kind of an embarrassment.
Well, and that's the emotional aspect of
Right.
it, right? Not the economic aspect of it. So from a clearly economic perspective, you wouldn't. But from a political perspective, or they're emotional or whatever, they may choose to complete it for other reasons.
Right. And that's where our divorcing people get stuck.
Right.
It's hard to have spent $150,000 on a family law trial. You lose the trial, and suddenly the question is, should I keep fighting?
Right. 150 seems a little steep for a trial, but
No, it's not.
you mean in total cost, not just the trial.
Well, depends on how many days you spend
That's true.
trying the case.
That's true.
But,
Sometimes we see a week trial or whatever. Yeah.
but a lot of times the assets you're fighting over aren't worth as much as the money you spent to get it. But let's say that you spent $150,000 to get a $125,000 pension, and so the payout is $25,000 short, and the question is, should I appeal this ruling?
Right.
And the answer is in addition to what's the likelihood that the appellate court's going to overturn the decision,
Right.
are you going to get that $150,000? If you're going to get the $150,000, the answer is yes. Because if you spend $25,000 on the appeal and the appeal is successful, it doesn't matter that you've already spent the $150,000, right? But that's how people get stuck, because they become emotionally invested in a certain outcome, and they tend to spend more. They tend to factor in the sunk cost into their decision to continue fighting.
Right. And I think we see that in almost every case, maybe not on the scale of 150,000, but we see it even on the smaller scale where, well, if I tell somebody up front, this is probably going to cost you at least 15 to 20,000, they're kind of like, well, I don't have 15 to 20,000. Mm-hmm. Well, right. But the attorney's only asking you for 5,000 or 10,000 up front. And then you're going to get into it. And then you're going to be out of money, but you're going to be in the heat of battle, and you're going to be angry about your losses, or you're going to feel so victorious about your wins that you want more. And you're going to keep pursuing it. And then you'll start, borrowing from family or selling things or credit cards or whatever you got to do to keep that battle going. And so that's a lot of what we talk about in the various podcasts and stuff, is really stepping back from the very beginning and trying to solve this issue and really get a handle on it, and not, create a situation where you're in these runaway attorney fees. But a lot of times people are already well into this, right? By the time they find us, and they've already spent thousands and thousands of dollars. And so, should you continue spending it? And if so, why? Now, I think the hardest part to me, the numbers make sense, right? 2 + 2 is 4.
Right.
Although we have seen people spend $30,000 and get a $25,000 asset. We've seen that happen.
Yes.
So it definitely does. But I think where we have the biggest struggle is with the children.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can't put a dollar amount on that. You spent $10,000 fighting over your kids, but you want to protect your kids, so you're going to throw all the money that you have at that.
Sometimes you spend $150,000 to get custody over a $25,000 kid.
No comment. I don't. We have 4 kids. I have to pick one to insult
I don't know.
to be able to do that.
Yours probably not worth $25,000 both together.
Wow, mine are worth more than yours are. So there.
So there.
But when you're in, the custody situation, it is easy to sort of lose control, but or to lose control of the fees and kind of just be pouring more and more into it because of the emotional nature that normally comes with the child custody issues. But we've even seen, we had a case many, many years ago where the lady came into our office, and it was just, we were trying to tell her that we didn't think that starting off with the domestic violence request was the best way to handle her case, in our opinion, given what we didn't feel like, Thomas, I should say, didn't feel like the husband was, truly a danger and all that kind of thing. There were a lot of sort of peripheral things happening that weren't great, but not enough to where you could say like, oh, he's going to come, kill her or hurt her or the kids or anything. There was nothing like that. And so, Thomas kind of said to her, I really don't think this is the best way to start your case off. And she disagreed. And so we referred her to somebody that could, that would handle it the way she wanted it handled. And she got what she wanted. She got pretty much full custody of her kids.
Yeah.
She spent a lot of money, but she got full custody of her kids. Here's the interesting part. Thomas and I went back a year later and looked at that file.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. And the parents had 50-50 custody. So, in that situation, she spent those thousands of dollars to have a 1-year reprieve from having 50-50 custody with dad. And so a lot of times in retrospect, it's easy to go, well, no, that wasn't worth it. It just delayed the inevitable. But when you're in it, in the heat of the moment, and you have those emotions and it's your children, it's really hard to have an objective perspective.
Right. Well, I think in divorce, there's a huge sunk cost problem in that the marriage itself is sometimes a sunk cost.
True.
And you've got people that are trying to recover or hold on to a piece of it, and they're doing that through litigation.
Right.
But there is value. As my father used to say, don't throw good money after bad.
Right.
That's true in litigation. It's also true in emotional dealings that, if you've decided to get a divorce, then in my view, it's time to make a clean break.
Right. Right. Because emotionally, it's not going to get any easier. People have this perception that, over time or whatever, it'll get easier. And a lot of times it's not just the financial piece of it. It can also be your time. Like in my particular situation, I'm obviously been divorced for a long time. I'm remarried and all that kind of thing. But I still have an ex-husband that owes me outstanding support. And so I think we see this a lot in post-judgment situations where people already have their court orders, but they're trying to actually collect the money.
Yeah.
And people are chasing their spouse. We've had people chasing their ex-spouse in different countries and states and all kinds of shenanigans going on. But in my personal situation, my ex-husband really has no resources. He has no, he
sets himself up to not have resources.
Right. He lives with someone that covers all of his expenses, and he really, if he works under the table where he's judgment proof, as you like to say. And so really, for me chasing him, obviously it probably wouldn't cost me any money because you're a family law attorney and, I know how to do a certain amount of things. And so I could probably get help from you.
I'm not sure you could afford me.
Yeah, no, I can't afford your rates. But what would happen is it would be a time cost for me and you, right? Yeah. It would cost your time to sit down and figure that out and chase him. It would cost my time. It also would cost me more emotionally because then I'm focused on him and focused on chasing him, and I'm not focused on myself. And so you have that component of it as well. And I think people get really absorbed a lot of times, especially in post-judgment situations where the other person owes them money.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Remember that gal that we had about 10 years ago? And the fella owed her something like $250,000, and he moved to another state, and he put all his property into his new wife's name.
Mm-hmm.
And there was really nothing that I could do as a California attorney to get that property. And I told her what you need to do is to go to that state and see if you can collect it. But this guy was so adept at, and apparently very trusting of his new mate.
Yes.
Who had him by the short hairs. But he was able to avoid this child support collection. And the thing that was remarkable about this person was how bitter she was.
Yeah.
And how that just ate at her soul, And what you're doing is you're throwing good money after bad.
Right.
You're investing your current happiness in the past.
Right.
Which is a bad investment.
Especially if your past involves a jerk.
Like that.
It's just, it is really hard because it's like you feel like the other person's getting away with something.
Right.
It's like my...
And they are.
And they are, yeah. And my ex-husband, left and was the higher earner and, in my opinion, didn't help with the kids as much as he could have, wasn't even really present, didn't help financially, didn't help in any of those ways. And so it feels like, well, he should at least have to do something. And that's true. But what's it going to cost me, time-wise, emotional-wise, money-wise, to force him to do something? Because the fact that he hasn't paid me, though, that's already lost money, right? That's already a sunk cost. It's already gone.
Yeah, and
he didn't pay me,
I can just hear people dropping off and say, I'm not going to listen to this stupid podcast anymore. These people want to let people just get away with anything, and that's not the case.
Right.
What I would encourage our listeners to do is to reframe that sentiment. Because if you're preoccupied with trying to get your ex-spouse to behave in a certain way, enough to spend tons of money and use the power of the state of California to force them to do it.
Or whatever state you're in.
Or whatever, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. You have to kind of count the costs in terms of your own emotional well-being. And say, look, now one of the things that my boss, when I got my divorce, I confided in my boss, was that time the great Joe Truce, one of the finest attorneys I've ever known, and he was my mentor initially when I started litigating, and he said, Darcy, that's my middle name, that's what he called me. You can always make more money. You've got your profession and you've got your reputation and you can make more money, but you can't make more time with your kids. You can't make happiness. You have to pursue, you can, but what he's saying is pursue those things, not the money.
Right.
And what people tend to do is they pursue the money at the expense of the other things. So what tends to happen is people get bitter.
Right.
And they hold on to that bitterness, and it ruins their relationship with their kids. Mm-hmm. It ruins them financially because they have so much invested, sunk costs,
right,
in the litigation. And at the end, when it's all over, that person's still living in their head because they didn't get exactly the result they wanted.
Right. And, one of the things about the family life versus money is, that's exactly true. Is like your kids are only going to be this age for this period of time, or you're only going to be in this place in your life in this period of time. And when we're in divorce, we tend to feel like where we're at right now is how it's going to be forever. But I'm here to tell you it won't be. It will be over someday. And you will have missed all of this time with your kids because you're preoccupied on chasing the other person. And Thomas and I aren't saying that it's never warranted to chase the other person. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But like our friend who spent 30 grand and to pursue a $25,000, asset, and it took up,
Right.
months of his life and, his emotional energy and all of those things. And he really ended up 5,000 to the bad financially on top of everything else.
Right.
And I think the danger is when you go into attorneys and you say, I want to pursue this, collection of this money, or I want to pursue this in my divorce settlement, or, I'm getting ready to go to trial. Here's what I want to accomplish. The attorney is really going to be like, okay,
Well,
they're
good.
not going to tell you, for the most part. I mean, most of them that I know are not going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't do that. Like, this is your life decision. And if this is what you want to pursue and you're hiring them and paying them to pursue it, they're going to pursue it.
I don't want your $50,000.
Right. And they can't guarantee you an outcome. So, it's a roll of the dice either way. But, they're essentially there to serve you and to work for you and to accomplish whatever you're saying that you want to accomplish.
Right. And
So-
so many times, and I fall into this too as an attorney. I'm patronistic. I want to say, well, this is what you should do. And I get frustrated if the client wants to do something else. But you have to count the cost for yourself.
That's right. That's what I was
Yeah.
going to say is the attorney isn't the one, this is their job. So they're getting paid to be in this. Okay. So they're getting paid to handle all the stuff and do all the things. You're the one that this is going to have a permanent impact on your emotions, your well-being, your family life, and all of your things. And so, your finances, all of that. And, I agree with what Thomas said. You can always make more money. Like, that's kind of the philosophy I've tried to take is, okay, my ex-husband owes me a lot of money, but I can either spend my time, which I can't get more of. It's a finite resource.
Mm-hmm.
And I can spend my time pursuing him and lose that time, or I can spend my time pursuing my own things that, my business, my things that help me and boost me and make me feel like I'm contributing and I'm serving others. And that helps me emotionally and financially.
Yep.
Right. And so
Right.
that's really the key becomes where you're going to focus on them or on you. And again, I'm not saying you should never pursue it. I'm saying you have to take a step back and you have to count those costs for yourself and not just go in and rely on, can the attorney do this job or not? Yes, 99.9% of the attorneys can do the job.
They can do it.
Yeah. It's just a matter of, is that really the route that you want to go?
Yeah.
And what are the costs of it?
Right. Remember when we went about 7 years ago, we went to a Brendan Burchard conference.
If you don't know who he is, look him up because he's awesome.
Yeah. And we were on the beginning of this journey, and we were trying to figure out, well, how can we take our experience, which was a hard experience, and turn it into something good for other people and create a business around it.
Right.
And 7 years later, we've been largely successful in doing that. And we, have, of course, have how many followers do we have now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't know, but it's more than 600, right?
You're talking about YouTube.
Oh.
YouTube subscribers is 639.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
You don't know how many subscribers we have.
I don't know.
We
I
have
don't.
buku. Like we're like amazingly popular. We're going viral.
It's not my job to check those stats. No, I mean we have my children work for us and they're the ones that monitor all that and keep track of it. So I don't know,
Right. But if I wanted to fight my ex-wife and win the case, and I obsessed over that, I would have not had the energy or the money left over to start the business.
right.
So I had to weigh, which one do I want? And this is really a lot more fulfilling than fighting out your divorce case.
Really?
This is
You don't have fun fighting out your divorce case with your ex-wife?
no. Let me think about that. No. Yeah. It's funny how things come around, but But we've actually, in the process of starting this business, we've been able to learn so much about how to behave and how to deal with our exes that it has benefited our families. It's not only benefited our family, but it's benefited hers as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And all the families, hopefully, that we've impacted through the process of doing this. But like Thomas said, if we're so focused on our exes and sort of that get even mentality, we can't focus on doing something proactively positive in our own life.
And this is cool, this business. I get to help people, and I get to be with my kids. I get to go surf every once in a while. That's
when
pretty
I let you out of the house.
Yes.
But I think that when people are in the situation of the sunk costs, that is what they're struggling with. It's really, like you said, from a financial perspective, from a purely economic perspective, you calculate it and you calculate whether it makes sense or not.
Yeah.
If you're telling me your entire estate is worth, $50,000 and you have an attorney telling you it's going to cost you $30,000, then your half of it's 25. Okay, no. But if you just go in and you don't ask,
you just lost $5,000.
Yeah. But a lot of times what people want to know is what's the retainer, what's the hourly rate. It's like very rarely does somebody ask us, what realistically is this entire case likely to cost me?
Yeah.
Because if in California, I will tell you that if you don't have children, the average cost is $17,000, give or take. Don't quote me exactly, but it's right in that neighborhood. If you have minor children at home, the average cost is about $25,000, and that's per party. That's not combined. We're talking $17,000 per party or $25,000 per party. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've got this crummy little paternity case going, and it's ended up costing our client $8,000 so far. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's not even any property to divide in that situation.
Yeah.
And for me personally, when I went through my divorce, I was mid-30s. We didn't have a whole lot. We got married very young, and we probably had maybe $10,000 in assets if we were lucky, and we had more debt than that. So anything that I spent was literally just
for nothing. Really.
Yeah, it was unjustifiable, except for in the realm of the kids, because again, that was an emotional issue, not a financial issue.
Right.
But you have to look at that and just know, hopefully we're just making you aware so that you just know what that's about and know where you're spending it. I'm not telling you shouldn't spend it. I'm just telling you that you have to make that decision, not let the attorney lead you down the path of.
I remember there was a book that I read about, I would say maybe 12 years. It was quite a long time ago. Well, it seems like a long time ago, but it was 9 things that successful people do. And one of the 9 things was successful people cut their losses. Yeah, and I saw he gave a couple examples of rich people who decided to sell an asset or sell something that they'd worked really hard on or something, or get out of a relationship that was completely dysfunctional.
Right.
You're in a divorce, which means for 99.99% of the cases, it's over.
Right.
It's time to cut your losses.
Right.
Which means it's time to stop being emotionally involved with the other person, which the litigation tends to hang on, make you hang on to.
Right.
As long as you're fighting that other person, that person is living in your head. And I know your girls in the sisterhood.
Yeah.
And
my coaching. Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of what you're coaching them about is letting go of that past.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's hard to do. It's easy to sit here and say, and it's hard to do. And when it's you don't always know that you're in it. You need that outside perspective. You were that outside perspective for me in a lot of ways. You had a divorce coach, and I think emotionally you were further along when we met because you had been working with a divorce coach and it had helped you and all that. And then you kind of took that and...
but the student has become the teacher.
And then you helped me a lot because I was struggling with a lot of that too. And so, just understanding why that's good for you and why why it's the perspective that you need to have, because your focus has to shift from that past life into your future life. That's really the transition that divorce is. And as long as you're looking back at that past life, you can't build the future one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So don't factor in sunk costs when you're making your decisions. And that's not just money.
Right.
Don't let the past go. Whatever you've spent, you've spent.
Right.
It
Your
is-
youth, whatever it was.
Hey, I'm 61 years old and I still go surfing. So
Yeah. You do.
yeah. And
I'm not as cute as I once was, though.
You're cuter.
All right. On that sappy note, we hope this has been helpful in giving you some perspective and thinking about this. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so that you get notified as new videos come out. If you are listening to the podcast, rate and review us wherever you're listening to us. And also don't forget to subscribe so you get notified of new episodes. And we will see you next week.
Catch you later.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira. For more information, visit www.divorceuniversityonline.com.